Hello, this is Michael Hayes with Momentum Hiring Solutions. Today's another episode of the Hiring Confessional. But before we start and listen to our guest, I was driving here again. Remember how I have all these issues when I drive around this town? One of the things I've noticed about Phoenix is they love to block the streets. The guy that has the business for pylons and barricades must be a billionaire. The other thing that's nice is let's block the road with nobody working. I love that. So 5 different spots on the way here over 11 miles, and there's not a person on the street. So if you're the dude that has the corner on these barricades, you probably could pay off the national debt. I did get asked this week to do some tips for job seekers because I know there's a lot of you out there that are looking for work or have issues with finding jobs and have trouble with companies, et cetera, on dealing with getting interviews and stuff. And you can sit here and criticize stuff like especially the being on time, but I hate to tell you, if you're going to keep being late every week or late to stuff or missing interviews, you're probably not going to get a decent job. So tell me about how we're old and we don't know anything, but showing up on time respects other people's time, and when you're late, you disrespect them. So let's get that clear. Here's some tips for old people like me. If you have Sun City, Arizona on your resume, please get a P.O. box. I don't know if you know this, but there's ageism out there. And that actually works against you because people can tell that's an over 55 place to live. So they can pretty much figure out how old you are. You might as well just put the mortuary address down because it's the same thing. So get yourself a P.O. box. Being on time is still a thing. Why does the doctor send you 40 texts on your appointment, starting with the day that you book it? Because people don't show up, and they have issues with rebooking people, and it wastes everybody's time. So being on time is still an important thing. Wearing your hat backwards, that is a key that you're here to rob the place. So if you're going to interviews or you're going to be on things that are around people that are networking, put your hat forward. Just give it a try. Change it up for a time. Your backwards hat isn't working for you. Another thing that's a little more serious is protect your background and motor vehicle record. Backgrounds are run on a lot of different places, and it's very dangerous for you to get in a job if you have background issues, theft, all that sort of thing. Motor vehicle record too, if you get a job where they require you to drive. If you've got 3 DUIs, first of all, you're probably going to be in jail, which is going to show in the background. And number 2, you're not going to be able to drive a company vehicle. So protect that with everything you can. You just don't know what kind of background check or what this companies are going to actually do when they get the information. So don't give them something to cut you loose. Most folks that I know would hire a murderer before they hire somebody that steals stuff. So stealing is probably one of the worst. So do yourself a favor and make sure you behave yourself out there. Okay, those are the tips. Give us some comments about those and let us know if those can help you out or if they're stupid and you want me to come up with something better. So today we have Alan Saquella. He spent 30 years figuring out why people are lying. He's a professor at Embry-Riddle, director of investigations at Forensic, who's a guest we had on before, and one of the few people who interviews people for a completely different reason than I do. He's not trying to hire them, he's trying to catch them. I've known Alan since we lived on the same dorm floor at NAU in 1980, which, by the way, that was the Wild West of being in school, which means he's had 45 years of practice catching me lying, which is probably about 50% of the time. Alan, welcome today. I'm glad you could make it to come into the Hiring Confessional.
Michael, thank you. Glad to be here with you today.
Give us a little bit of your background, because after you came out of NAU, how did you get into this field, and what have you accomplished since then?
You know, NAU at the time when I attended there had a program called police science, so that was my major. So I was interested in that field to begin with, and it really dates back to high school. I almost hate to share this. When I was in high school, I worked undercover with the narc officers to set up buys, and they would bust the drug dealers. So I was actually quite interested in law enforcement early on, and went through the law enforcement program, graduated, then went to polygraph school. I was corrupted by the DPS crime lab, which was in the university. You might remember this.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the bottom floor, they had the crime lab. There was an examiner there, polygraph. And I would talk to him, got interested in that field. So when I graduated, I went on and got my master's. Then I did the polygraph training. I was hired. I won't mention the agency, but I was doing background, criminal investigations, interrogations, as well as polygraph. Screening, and you had mentioned the types of interview I do was not to hire, but also to catch people. So I did a lot of that on the front end for law enforcement and intelligence agencies, but just had an interest in it early on.
That's a big industry. So what did you decide to focus on the most as far as, was it working with companies or what have you?
Well, when we were in college, there was a height requirement for police officers, and you'll
Really?
notice I'm pretty short. Yeah, I'm only 5'5", and so I figured, I'm going to get challenged on the street, so I better find another avenue. So lie detection seemed very interesting to me. At that time, everybody was using it. Law enforcement, intelligence agencies, even corporations were using it to screen candidates, dealing with everything from, trying to identify everything from integrity issues like you had mentioned, theft, but also everything else you can imagine under the sun. You didn't want to bring people on that had history of issues. What's really interesting, I found in my career, that 87% of the people that were hired did not have a criminal history, which is awesome. What we have, though, are behavior problems. So we want to catch those, get those identified during the interview or the pre-test interview as part of the polygraph, so we can screen those bad behaviors out. But every industry was using it. I dabbled in the public sector as well as the private sector, which then ultimately led me to become a director of security at my last company before I retired, and now started to teach at Embry-Riddle 5 years ago.
So when do they call you in to do your magic? Is it mostly internal stuff? Now, can people refuse to do the polygraph, or how does that work? If they're working at a certain company, or do they agree about that before they can even come in?
There's a Polygraph Protection Act of 1989, which severely restricted the use in the private sector. So prior to that, any company could ask any employee or applicant to take it, and if they refused to take it, they would not be hired. The Polygraph Protection Act actually put an end to that. So most organizations do not use pre-employment polygraph in the private or corporate sector, with the exception of pharmaceutical companies, security companies, companies that are government contractors that require security clearance. So that's a small percentage of the population now. And so, yes, you can refuse today. And, of course, the companies can't ask you unless, again, it's required by the government contract. Now, in the law enforcement sector and the intelligence sector, you don't have a choice. You have to take one to get past the screening process for hiring. The other part, of course, is the insider issue that you mentioned. Companies are not going to use the polygraph for insider issues. So when I left polygraph in the early 90s, I went to work as a corporate investigator where I investigated insider issues. We could not use polygraph. And, of course, then I had to hone my skills related to interview, and I hate to use the word interrogation, but interview interrogation, we don't waterboard, by the way.
Oh, no waterboarding? Well, geez, that would be a lot quicker and a lot cheaper. Have you, one of the people that I always tell people when they ask me about interviews, like, how do you get good at them, or, what did you learn? And I learned most of mine on the job and doing them. You got to do them and do them and do them. But there's one person that I think if you don't know how to interview, if you emulate, is Judge Judy. I don't know if you've watched those shows, if you stay home. I watch how she asks the questions and how she gets a written statement, and then she goes through the same information. It's not rocket science. And she tries to catch people lying. And I think she uses a lot of intuition that way. Now, I'm not saying it's always correct, but I think at most of the end of those, she gets out what she's looking for. How would you comment on that?
No, she's trained to do that, and it is through practice. I just wrote an article for a security magazine about you can get a certificate in interview and interrogation, but if you don't practice it, you're not going to get good at it. You have to learn how to read body language, verbal and nonverbal, micro expressions. That's part of interrogation. And it's very similar to what she's doing. She's looking at the behaviors more so in the written statement. Then she can go back later and catch them in a lie. We do that during the actual interrogation. We're asking questions. We're looking at their body language, verbal, nonverbal, facial expressions. And then, of course, based on those, it'll lead us down a path. People who are deceptive or wanting to be deceptive respond differently than those who are truthful. You know, for example, if I said to you, did you take that missing bank deposit? If you didn't take it, you're immediately going to say no. A suspect may pause, hesitate. They may even ask you, do you think I took that missing bank deposit? So they avoid answering the question. That gives the interrogator, okay, green light, I'm going down this path now because he's a suspect. So you have to be trained. You got to practice it. It's like any athlete. You got to get out and practice it.
What are some of the cues, like body language and things that you could tell somebody was, or even a tip for somebody that's even, what about questioning your kids? You know, that's the kind of thing that, you know, most parents would need. But what are the body language that trigger suspicion?
Well, I could take you actually back further. The polygraph actually records body language of different things that we're monitoring. It's controlled by what we call the autonomic nervous system. There's two parts. There's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So sitting here with you talking, the parasympathetic is in charge. When we lie about something we're concerned about, we're trying to deceive, the sympathetic takes over, and there's a little bit of a push of adrenaline, blood pressure change, respiration changes, your pupils dilate, and it causes other physiological things that you can notice. If a person's been lying for a while, you'll notice their mouth will get dry, they'll start having white foam appear in the corners of the mouth because they can't produce saliva. When you're in a fight or flight response, which is the sympathetic nervous system taking over, your body's preparing you to fight or flee, and when we lie, the same thing happens. And so naturally, a lot of the movements, crossing the legs and arms to protect the trunk and body, is something they may push back to create some separation from the person. They may avoid eye contact. They may pause or hesitate when you ask the question, like I mentioned with the bank deposit. They'll come up with other responses that are not indicative of truthfulness. Truthful people respond differently than non-truthful people. Look for the pauses and the hesitations and the looking away and the closed body posture and the separation. That tells you that they don't want to share anything with you. And those are good keys. Actually, one of the classes I teach is interview and interrogation at Embry-Riddle, and it's a whole semester to get 45 hours. And we actually have them do some mock interviews on. We set up a crime. Someone takes a $100 bill off the table. There's 3 suspects. They interview each of them, monitoring the behaviors. By week 6, they can all pick out the person who did it without them admitting it.
And that's, again, you were like saying, it's just like anything else, golf, tennis, whatever. You're not going to be good if you don't practice it. So where do these kids go that end up getting to this? Because a lot of people might not know that this is, you know, a big field, you know, because everybody always thinks they know about all these jobs and careers, but that's an interesting career that's probably gonna, don't you agree, it's probably gonna continue to go without, you know, and we can get into AI later, but this is something that can be a good career path for young people, correct?
Oh, absolutely. You know, most people are watching the different crime shows on television, so they want to go down that path. At Embry-Riddle, our program is called Global Security and Intelligence, so a lot of our students graduate and go into the 3-letter agencies. We have several going through the screening process for all of them right now as they graduated and moved on. Some will go local law enforcement as crime analysts. analysts, because they're really wanting to help prevent, mitigate criminal activity. They're not really wanting to be beat cops necessarily, and you don't really go get a bachelor's degree to do that necessarily. But some will do that. But again, the three-letter agencies as well as corporations. The issue we're seeing is white-collar crime is growing exponentially, okay? So fraud examiners, people, we also offer a degree in forensic accounting and fraud examining, because you have to follow the money. Every terrorist organization, criminal syndicate needs money, and they're committing white-collar offenses, laundering money to be able to operate. We need people to be able to follow that. Think about cryptocurrency and where we're headed there as well. As we're looking for these types of criminals, we got to find the money, and we're going to find them. So the future is growing crazily. Just like we have baby boomers retiring in every particular field, including aeronautics, and we're short on pilots, so is the intelligence and law enforcement fields, especially at the street level. How many people want to become beat cops today?
Well, especially when, if you make a wrong move, depending on what city you're in, you could end up being in jail. I mean,
absolutely.
It's not worth the amount of money you get paid for that hassle. And it's very hard when you put somebody in that position, whether they're shooting or whatever it is, it's a split second. And the thing I worry about is people are going to start, pulling their punches, because we're getting more cops killed because they're too worried about what's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. So what you're finding, the more progressive law enforcement agencies are embracing technology, and I'm sure we'll get into AI. This city right here in Scottsdale, by the way, has the best drone program in the country. Law enforcement's coming here from all over the world to see how we're dispatching our drones. In the city of Scottsdale, I went to their crime center just a month and a half ago. They can have a drone on site at the crime scene within 1 minute of it being reported. So it's hovering over the crime scene while law enforcement is en route, so it's getting updated information. So you're going to see that cities like Scottsdale and others around the country that are embracing technology, drone technology as well as AI, robots, and other things, you're going to have to supplement the human force with technology, because Phoenix has, I don't know, close to 1,000 officers down. No, they're not going to fill them. They're going to have to embrace technology. Let's figure out how we're going to do our jobs and keep the citizens of Phoenix safe. But they're going to have to employ other things: robots, drones, technology.
So this is probably what's speeding the drone technology. Was probably when especially the war in Ukraine started, and then they started figuring out, oh man, we can use all these drones, and that's why you probably see all this stuff for waging of war is going to change to more robotics than it is going to be people, because you could be the best platoon or group of SEALs, and one guy with a drone could take you out. And that's
sure.
I don't think people really thought that through when this stuff started.
Yeah, because some of these drones, which by the way, some of them are made right here in Gilbert, Arizona, they strap bombs on those. Those drones are like kamikazes, but there's no pilot in there. So you fly it right into your whatever your destination is that you're shooting for. And so you're going to have a lot of those cool and smart systems on the military side. But also on a law enforcement side, we're going to have to use this.
What if you're a company out there? What kind of issues would they call you or ask for your advice to come in and look at? What's the top couple things that happen inside companies that they're like, hey, we need to find out what's going on here?
Yeah, so when I'm not teaching, I do a little consulting on the side, and I also train professionals around the country. I get called in for white-collar stuff, corporate crimes. So kind of my specialty, that's where I spent a lot of my time. When I left the public sector, I was in the private sector for 30 years. So I was involved with investigating everything under the sun that could hurt the company, from an insider and external standpoint. So it could be embezzlement, which is stealing, right? It could be espionage, stealing company information and selling it to a competitor or elsewhere. Workplace violence, sexual harassment, sabotage, everything that goes on where today I get called out with companies that don't have insider investigation teams that can do it. So small, medium-sized companies. I did a lot of work for small medical practices because they don't realize you have to separate duties. Can't have the same person getting the mail. You have access to the credit cards, accounts payable, accounts receivable, because you're going to have fraud. And of course, when the dentist calls me, they're already into them for $200,000 or $300,000 in embezzlement. So small companies have risks because they don't separate the duties. So I get called out mostly for embezzlement situations because they don't have the controls in place to prevent that stuff.
And is that because they overtrust the people that are working for them? And then, by the way, the people that you do find in there, are they like a serial person that does that? I mean, find it hard to believe that somebody would start working somewhere and then 2 years later, work an embezzlement scheme. Is that correct, or is it somebody that just looks for a great opportunity to get into and then waits for that time to jump?
That's a great question, Mike. Actually, I teach another class at Embry-Riddle. It's called White Collar Crime, and we look at what we call the fraud triangle. And the fraud triangle is motivation, rationalization, and opportunity. Opportunity at the top of the pyramid is what causes a lot of people to do it. So to your point, if there's weak controls, they may do it. Now, there's a thing called the 10-80-10 rule. 10% of the population will never steal. You can leave a bank deposit out and they won't take it. 10% will do it all the time. So there's not much you can do for that guy. It's the 80%, the general population. Those are the ones we have to address. We do that through good controls and have tight controls and auditing, but also make sure we do a good job hiring. Have the controls in place, because you can do a great job hiring, but if we don't have any controls, we create that opportunity by giving them all the responsibility, and something happens in their life, a financial problem, gambling, whatever, it could cause them to embezzle. So not everybody comes in with the intent to embezzle. I think 10% do. 80% are just general people that, if given the opportunity, will take advantage of it. And the other 10%, I don't think you ever have to worry about.
What do you think about, and I just popped into my head, and like stuff pops into my head all the time. Half the time I don't say anything because you don't want to hear it. But, a couple weeks ago, I learned that term micro-looting from some of these East Coast, smart Alecs that think that's an okay way to do stuff. Like, you're telling people, hey, it's okay to go steal lemons at Costco or wherever the hell you're at. And I'm like, okay, so you start to rationalize theft, and I can just see how that snowballs. What did you notice that thing when it came out? And I'm like, wow, that's a bad thing to have go on.
I smiled a little bit and laughed because a lot of it starts off small and it creates a behavior. And so you can't, even when I used to do polygraphs for pre-employment screening for public sector, we asked, what's the most valuable thing you've stolen, shoplifted, and also from a place of employment. It starts off small. If nobody says anything about it, it continues to grow. And the same thing with the lemons. And so you don't want to condone that type of behavior. And so I had another example where I had an employee at my last company embezzled a couple $100,000 for us. During the interrogation, she mentioned that she prayed that she would get caught because she was a kleptomaniac and she could not stop stealing. And she had mentioned it started at a young age as shoplifting and junior high, continued on to the point now she embezzled a couple $100,000. Now, this happened during COVID, so the courts were closed. We did, in fact, file and prosecute her, but the courts were closed. While she was waiting for her first hearing, she got arrested for shoplifting. And so, again, it continued. So I think it could create an illness or a behavior that's hard to stop. It's like gambling, right? You go to the casino, they want you in there, and you win, you go back, you keep doing it. Next thing you know, you're embezzling money to pay for your habit, whether it's drugs, alcohol, gambling, or just kleptomania.
Well, the thing that I found interesting is that if you've got people that can rationalize stealing, then they have no idea the economics of how a store works. These guys are making 1 or 2% turn at the most on their inventory, and you're stealing stuff that other people have to pay for. But that never comes up. It's the company is making all this money, and I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
No, absolutely right. I mean, if you think about the margins, right, and retail and grocery stores, their margins are very slim. So 1 or 2%, like you mentioned, on the grocery stores. And the average company in the United States loses about 5% of their annual revenue to fraud. If their margin is 3%, they're in a hole too. So, they don't realize that the company is not making that as profit. That's after all expenses are paid, including payroll and rent, which are some of your largest expenses. And so they don't understand that. And the thing is, and I teach this in my white-collar crime class, why is white-collar crime such a problem, by the way? According to the FBI, it's a $300 billion a year loss to American companies, $300 billion. That's based on what's reported. Now, you and I know not everything's getting reported, and it's probably 5 times that amount. It's because Americans or people don't see companies as victims. The victims are the ones that are in the news every day. It's the person that's killed. We like that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that gets media attention, not the white-collar stuff. Nobody cares about it.
Is this part of the investigative process is, these companies just get, you work at a company and you get bombed with these BS emails that people put together. They use the name or the stationery or logos. And then, Susie clicks on the link and sends 20 grand to some doofus over in Uganda or something. Is that part of a bigger problem because of the amount of this crap that gets sent out? Like I know I have a friend that works at American Express, and they talk about this all the time. So is that another big problem that's going on right now?
Yeah, it is. And you'll find a lot of that in a financial institution such as American Express or banking. You got to have certainly great controls in education and culture in the company. You'll notice when you log into your computer, the first message that comes up, you're going to abide by the IT policies. And of course, there's constant reminders. If you think about just what happened last week with Canvas, which is the platform that most universities use, that got hacked. And of course, that was a big deal. It happened right around graduation. All the state universities were having a hard time getting their grades in and so forth. So someone had clicked on a link, and that's exactly what happened there, that caused the outsider to get in and cause havoc. It's a big issue. What is also bigger that we don't talk about is on the personal side, identity theft, these romance scams that you see on Facebook and wherever else is a big problem. People are falling from them, and you see the elderly population are lonely that fall for these scams, and it's an unfortunate thing.
I mean, I'm so careful. I delete stuff I actually need. Like people go, "Hey, I sent you an email and you're not reading it." I go, "I thought it was a scam." I get really, if it doesn't look even halfway legit and I can't call to verify, I just delete the thing.
I'm smiling because I do the same thing. I think our generation does that. We're at a point now, if we don't trust it, we delete it or block it. And it's interesting, I was talking to some companies, they say that's a problem now because marketers are having a hard time getting through to us, sending legitimate marketing because we don't trust anything. And it's unfortunate. The pendulum has swung all the way the opposite way to prevention and protection. I'm not sure where the balance is going to be, but I'd rather not be marketed to and solicited anyway, because suggestive marketing pops up when you're talking about it if you got your mic on your phone.
What's the so based on your knowledge, what's the AI going to provide for this? Is it going to be more of a tool for embezzlers, or is it going to be more of a tool for the people trying to catch the embezzlers?
That's a great question. I will tell you that the embezzlers and the fraudsters are about a step ahead of us, and of course, every time they do it, we catch up and we plug the gap. you have to, well, one of the things I recommend is we have to embrace it and find a way to use it so that we can be more protective. We call it now protective intelligence, which is more preventative versus mitigating the issue after it occurs. We have to go out there and search for risk indicators and then plug them before they become a risk. Because once it happens, now you got to mitigate the damage. So I'm actually teaching a new class to fall called Protective Intelligence. And basically, it's about that. We're going to be using tools to be looking out in the dark web and elsewhere for those potential risks before they manifest into an actual risk. We have to do that. We're going to be using AI to do that, looking for certain types of behaviors and so forth that the scammers use. And therefore, you can try to plug it before you actually are targeted. AI is going to be helpful in the investigation and intelligence world. It's already being used. I'm going to give you another example. Up in our university, we have, in another college, we have 4 colleges up there, but in the Forensics Arts and Sciences College, we have a capstone program for students working in the law enforcement sector where they get to work on cold cases. Real actual cold cases, and where they get to look at case files of everything.
So they give them the whole deal.
The prosecutors or the law enforcement agents give it to them, and they're starting to use a lot more advanced technology. So from a scientific standpoint, now on our side in global security and intelligence, we're doing similar things where we'll actually take written statements, similar to what you said about Judge Judy. We'll take some written statements and then we'll run them through AI using what we call forensic linguistic techniques. We'll say using forensic linguistic techniques, and we'll give the AI what those are. Then I'll say analyze. The prompt will be analyze the statement and tell me if it's a witness, a victim, or a suspect that wrote this statement.
Wow.
Like that. Usually take a day and a half for forensic linguistics to analyze something like that. Because people that speak and write that are deceptive speak and write differently. So we talked about behaviors, but it's also how we speak. Suspects avoid contractions. They avoid pronouns. Of course, they pause, they hesitate, they change their answers. So we're looking for all those indicators and cues as we're analyzing the statements. And it'll come back. I have a good friend of mine who was one of the lead detectives on the old Zodiac case up in California. We got those case files. And, of course, we're analyzing some of those statements. Now, that thing is 40 years old, maybe longer. I'm sure that suspect's dead and gone. But it's cool to be able to analyze using these techniques on those statements. And it's confirming a lot of what the law enforcement already did. But can you imagine if we're able to help solve some cases? There was actually a case up in Flagstaff shortly after we were there in 1987 where a gal by the name of Ina Langstaff, NAU student, was stabbed brutally, killed in November of 87, went unsolved until about last month. Our university and others got involved and actually pushed that case along and encouraged them to use some more modern DNA technology. Made an arrest last month. So this is a 30-something-year-old, almost 40-year-old homicide. So you're going to start to see some of this stuff help on old cold cases, which I think is going to be really good for the families and, of course, I think society as a whole.
For like your general employee out there, what should they do to protect themselves at the company and the company? I mean, you don't want to be the dude that pushed on the link that everybody, is going to be talking about at the cocktail party later in the afternoon. So what should they be aware of that you see are the new bait and switch things that are people using right now to get people to bite on this stuff?
With most of the scammers, it's always timing. And so they're trying to get you to hurry and make a decision. Stop and think and listen. Don't click on the link. Let it sit in your box. What you're going to find with the younger generation, they're in a hurry. They're so savvy with technology. They may not fully think about what they do before they act. You and I, on the other hand, we may not even respond or delete it. They just need to slow down. They need to follow the process and policies that we've established for them. The scams are still the same. They're just coming in different ways, whether they're emails, whether they're links, deepfakes are the biggest concern today, which are mimicking someone's audio recording. Right now, there's a scam going on where if they call you, someone will call you, and you've probably had these calls where you say hello, who's there, and it's dead for a minute before it finally connects to somebody. They're recording your voice. And they're going to use that later to create a deep fake. So don't answer. If you hear that, don't say hello. Just sit there and wait, see what happens. They'll usually disconnect. We just have to be aware of these things because they are coming up with new and innovative ways to duplicate us and, of course, use that later for other types of scams, like calling grandma. You've heard of that scam. And that's pretty frightening when a grandchild allegedly is calling grandma asking for money because they were arrested or down in Mexico or they're hurt and they need money right away. And so we just have to educate, be aware, and in your case and my case, don't trust anything. The IRS sends letters, they don't call. Law enforcement does not call. They come to the door. Let's turn off technology for a while. Let's go out in the street and play baseball. Let's avoid some of this stuff that we're so addicted to because that's the vehicle they're using to get to us.
Well, I mean, like today I was at the gym and I listen to like books or whatever the heck I listen to, but I watch people sitting on machines and clogging the machine while they're looking at their phone. And it's not just one, it's like 20 machines. You look around, it looks like drones all sitting there like bees that just sit still the whole day. And I'm like, you can't shut that off for like a half hour. Do you think that's a big problem too? Because I don't hear as much of it about the scams coming through the phones as I do the computer systems at work. But is it about the same, them using the phones because they're so much easier to get to?
No, yeah, you're right. It's not the phone calls as much anymore because everyone's blocking them and they're not answering their phones. Let's face it. If you don't recognize a number, they don't answer it. And if it's legit, they'll leave a voice message. So no, it is the computers. You're getting monitored. It's like the direct marketing based on your likes or based on your conversations. And all of a sudden, you and I are talking about a particular type of shoe. Within an hour, we're getting marketed by that shoe company. So yes, computers are, and of course, the technology behind them, which is causing us to get solicited and bombarded. That's why I say you got to lock down your phones, turn off your mics, try to detect once in a while. Again, remember our generation, we were out playing in a field. We didn't have phones. And so I think it was a lot easier and a lot safer for sure.
The other thing is, I think, because again, when I have my class at GCU for the networking and then entrepreneurship and innovation, it's the amount of these younger kids, usually 18 to 22, a majority of them can't have a conversation with somebody. First of all, they just want to go to a class where, it's just a drone on and on for an hour of showing you stuff on the screen or wherever. But when you start engaging and trying to get people to speak or do a little short presentation, it's almost like they're going to kill themselves. It's the hardest thing they've ever done. And I blame a lot of that. We're still in that COVID lag where we did nothing for a couple years. And now you're trying to get people to get back into actually having a conversation with somebody that can eventually maybe get you a job. I mean, you'd be shocked at how I tell people, go meet people, hang out with your professors or, go to lunch with one of them or say, hey, can I meet you after class and pick your brain? You get all these great tools. And I'll ask kids, how many here people have talked to their professor after class? Nobody raises their hand. And I'm like, I want to get somebody that would, if I get a job offer or I don't have a job offer, I could get a recommendation from. Hey, this guy knows me, whatever, he's going to do that for me. Just getting people to sign up and I get LinkedIn's not for, it's not for everybody, but it's a great place that's just not, Snapchat or Facebook or TikTok. It's more of a business oriented. Now, we could debate that too, but they have a hard time even signing up for LinkedIn. And I have a hardest time understanding. And I think we're not starting this training early enough. And then you're trying to squeeze it into a semester, and it just doesn't work.
No, I agree 100%. We've actually, we have a UNIV 101 class, University 101. They all have to take it to kind of learn and how to be successful in the university. Now it's required. They have to have a LinkedIn profile. I'm also known as the LinkedIn guru, and I'm smiling because the first thing that comes out of my mouth when a student shows up in my office, do you have a LinkedIn profile? When they drop their head and say no, okay, come back to me once you've started it, then I'll help you with it. We're actually creating a video on LinkedIn. You know, when we hear that 85% of recruiters are using it, and I tell them LinkedIn is professional networking. It's not social media. It's, yeah, we can debate that because you're starting to see a lot more ads and so forth, but it's not Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And I saw a guy post something. You'll love this. He's in our generation. Okay. He's complaining about why he cannot find a job. Of course, he's not embracing AI and the sifter, the applicant tracking systems and how to get past AI. But in addition to that, when I looked at his photo, he's in a bar with a beer in his hand. That's his professional photo on LinkedIn, okay? I about died. I actually wrote an article right after that and talked about the do's and don'ts on LinkedIn. I hope you read it. But this is not social media. It's professional media, and that picture needs to be a professional headshot. Or I had a guy with sunglasses and a baseball cap turned sideways. To your point.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. Next.
That's great if you're hiring a DJ. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so, these kids don't get it, and even some adults. But you got to move on. You got to realize this is the future. Embrace it, use it, and get out there and improve your social skills, like you mentioned about COVID. Yeah, we're seeing it as well. But I think and I hope we're at the end of COVID as we're getting into those who were in COVID in junior high, now had socialization in person in high school. They're a little better. I'm hoping this fall we'll see an improvement.
And I think I've said this before about higher education in this country. It is on a death watch with this AI because I don't think people are going to want to pay $50,000 or $100,000 a year to read ChatGPT crap. I'm not. And I think unless you have some type of class where you're bringing in stuff that you need to work on, or a group project, or speeches about business, or topics that a topic like when you do a Toastmasters introductory speech, tell me about yourself. Those type of things get somebody ready to be in the business world. But I don't think we're going to pay a bunch of money to have somebody use ChatGPT for 4 years. And I think that you just saw the other day, I don't know if it was true or not, some kid from UCLA was flashing his thesis or something that he did through ChatGPT on the thing, and supposedly it's gotten thousands of likes. And I couldn't find out if it was true or not, but apparently they're looking into him about pulling his degree because it violates the student code of conduct. And I'm like, that's the type of dumb stuff that people do that just drives me crazy. I mean, why would you do that?
No, you're absolutely right. So some of my peers up at Embry-Riddle are starting to go back to the old blue book, which is going to slow some of that down, using more quizzes in class versus assignments where they can use AI. A lot more in group presentations or group activities in the classroom, so they can't use it. We are encouraging them to use it for other purposes, but not for generating a report or a paper, because again, they're going to steal this stuff, and of course, it's not going to be theirs. It's not going to be authentic, and they're not going to get anything out of it. So, yeah, universities are still struggling how they're going to deal with it. We are using alternative methods to try to discourage some of it. At the same time, we have to have them use it for other purposes.
Yeah, I think the other thing you were talking about LinkedIn is what I call resume builders. Any type of job, like some people think, if I work at McDonald's, I would never put that up, and I'm like, no. That's a business. That's a job. You did stuff there, whatever it is, and it shows that you've got some gumption, or you want to earn some additional money or get additional experience. Go get internships, paid or unpaid. I mean, go work or volunteer at nonprofits or whatever it is, so you can get marks on your resume, on your what I call your living resume, which is LinkedIn. And the other thing is, when it comes down to hiring two people and they're even, the guy or the gal that does their extracurricular stuff is going to get the nod.
No, you're absolutely right. I say that too. And a lot of our students will have those jobs and they go, what should I do? I say, well, let me ask you a few questions. Okay, when you worked at that restaurant, what was your job? I was, let's say, a greeter, or I was a waitress, all right? Were you responsible for cash handling, safety, slips, trips, and falls? Let's get all that in there because we're interested in safety, security, cash handling. Those are the kinds of things we want to have in the description as well because of the field you're going into. That you have integrity, that you're concerned about safety and security and cash handling. Those are all things that you forgot to add. So we add those in addition to the fact that they had a job, that they're responsible. So yes, you want to have that in there, to your point. If you have no experience, you're going to go with the guy that has experience. And that's also volunteerism, different activities that they're involved in, which are also going to bolster their living resume.
Well, I tell people too, like if you come out here to some of the ritzy restaurants and stuff out here, and you can get a job in there and start off maybe as a bus boy or something like that, and you get to be the type of people that you will meet, that's the people that might hire you. Hey, this kid look how great he serves, or look how he presents himself very professionally. People hire that way. And I think that's become a lost art. Like, oh, I'm too important to work at a restaurant. I'm studying to be a lawyer or whatever. And I'm like, dude, nobody cares. I think people think a lot of that stuff is beneath them. Like, I've had some people go, well, I worked at Walmart for 2 years. I go, okay, you worked at Walmart. I mean, the largest retailer, all the type of things that you probably did there. You had a manager, all these other things that you had to do. You had to be there on time, stuff like that. Why are you downplaying that experience?
Right. And the other thing they need to realize, when they are working in those capacities, they're always on stage. So be performing. You be at the top of your game, to your point. Working here in this town, you don't know what you're going to come into contact with. When I was in different jobs around the country, I taught adjunct at different universities. And I was looking for talent. And I would, based on the performances, I would recruit some of those students. Ultimately, that's how I wound up landing at Embry-Riddle. I actually did a guest lecture up there, found a student, hired him, took him to my organization. So you're always looking, you're always recruiting. We're sales guys, you're always closing. You're always looking for talent. And I'll tell you, business owners, good leaders are always looking for talent. They should have a resume bank. I used to keep one in my desk. Top talent. I may not have a position today, but these are the ones I'm going to call the first moment I get one.
Well, a lot of businesses don't think that way. That's more reactionary. And I always tell people always be, like you said, always be recruiting, especially in the industrial sector, because you could have two guys walk in tomorrow and say, hey, we're out of here. Now you've got to start grinding. And, sometimes if you're a small business, that's, 25% of your workforce.
No, you have to be. You're always looking for talent. It's going to help protect your business. And what's your succession plan, right? Who's going to take that position if the guy decides to leave? You have to have backup or bench.
I mean, this has been a great conversation. The time just blows by. But as a final thing, give us a couple, what do you think are the 2 or 3 most important things in your business now that are going to propel it forward over the next couple of years? What do you think is going to be? Give us a little picture of the future.
Well, I could tell you AI and technology is going to have a bigger role in what we do. But you know what? The machines are not going to make the decisions. The humans still have to make the decisions because you have to hold somebody accountable. It's kind of like the autonomous vehicles out there. If they get in an accident, they're not suing the autonomous vehicle. They're suing the owner or the manager. Someone has to make a decision. We still need people. Don't worry about AI. Get out there and put your best foot forward. We need to continually improve our capabilities as far as applicants, because I know that this is the Hiring Confessional, right? Mm-hmm. So we do want to be thinking about polishing our resume, your LinkedIn profile, build your network. I had someone tell me once, don't even start looking for a job until you have 500 connections on LinkedIn as a minimum. And you have thousands. Because that network is so important. Listen to your peers, and don't worry about reinventing the wheel. Look at the good profiles that are out there. Use those as a template so that you can help bolster your own. Improve it and start networking. Don't be afraid to get out there and communicate, meet people. Ask them to be part of your network. So as far as the hiring and the looking for work, I think that's very, very important. As far as my career and the path that I'm in, we're certainly going to need more professionals to protect our society, our country, and why we're here today. And so we're going to continue to embrace technology to make sure that we have the best possible systems out there to protect our national security, our societies, and our companies here in the United States.
And then, as a final word for me, I think people, I'm already starting to hear it, people are using AI as an excuse for not getting a job. And I think you can't use that as an excuse. And you have to start thinking of where am I going to fit in with the way this is going? And don't overreact. Like in America, we're always, if one candy bar is good, five's better. So we always overreact, and then after a couple of years, people are like, "Oh, hey, this isn't the greatest thing that ever happened because there's other issues that have come up that we need to be." So pay attention to what's going on, and then take advantage of it.
Oh, absolutely, Mike. Spot on.
Yeah. Well, great. I want to thank Alan for being here. This is the Hiring Confessional, and do yourself a favor today. If you have a friend or something you haven't talked to in a while, why don't you reach out to him and give him a call? This is Michael Hayes with Momentum Hiring Solutions, signing off.